watching Way Back Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Way Back Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. I think we've got what I would consider to be an interesting show tonight. I've learned some things, as I always do, preparing for tonight's show, for every show, I should add. So, we've talked many times on this show about Rocky Mountain's two most noticeable and certainly well-deserved photographers, Bugs Behringer and Charlie Killebrew. And we've shown a lot of pictures by both of those gentlemen. And so when I run across some pictures I have not seen before by either one of them, I'm always excited to share them with you. And this week, when I was going through doing some research on a totally different topic, I stumbled across some pictures and learned something about Bugs Behringer I did not know. In addition to being a phenomenal photographer himself, he was also a bit of a picture collector. And so everything tonight is either something that Bugs Behringer took himself or a picture from one of his collections. With the exception of one picture I'm going to share with you that touches a special place in my heart tonight, and we'll get to that picture shortly. We're going to talk a little bit about a man nicknamed the French Angel. The French Angel came to visit Rocky Mountain in the 1940s, and we'll tell you a little more about him in a minute. But as I said, tonight's show, I found literally about 34 pictures, and we probably won't get to them all tonight, so what we don't get to tonight, we'll come back and finish them up next week. But these are all either pictures that Bugs Behringer took himself or ones that he had somehow collected from other photographers. Now, what these are, by the way, these are pictures from a vast time spread from Rocky Mountain. But they actually appeared in the paper, a couple of them from the 1950s, but most of them were reprints, if you will, from 1974 up to about 1982. And the neat thing about these pictures, and one of the things that I'm always intrigued by when I look at old photographs from the Rocky Mountain Telegram, especially reprinted photographs, they always have a neat caption. And there's a lot of history in those captions sometimes, a lot of neat stories. So without any further ado, let's jump right into this. Let's go to item number one. This actually appeared in the Rocky Mountain Telegram, I'm guessing for the second time, in 1956, September 1956. And it's talking about this gentleman here, and I'll read you a little bit about, I'm not going to read the article, of course, it's kind of long, but it says, the state's oldest, Rocky Mount H.S. Sedberry is the state's oldest pharmacist. And the caption reads, Henry Stiles Sedberry, Rocky Mount pharmacist, is the oldest in the state in terms of registration who is still in active practice. He was licensed March the 16th, 1892, and still works every day at the age of 83. Now, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mountain Telegram in September of 1956. So I did not research any longer to see how much longer after this was posted in the Telegram before Mr. Sedberry passed away. But at least in 1956, in September 1956, he was still working, and I believe he ended up working lastly at I.W. Rose Drug Store. He worked for over at May and Gorham Drug Store, I understand, too. But in any case, little neat tidbits of information like this are always interesting to uncover, and so I love finding these old pictures that tell a little story like this. So Mr. Sedberry in 1956 was Rocky Mount, not only Rocky Mounts, but the state's oldest practicing pharmacist. Okay, Lee, item number two, if we could. This picture also appeared in 1956, November of 1956, and I'll read the caption here to you. It says, off to Chicago. The four Edgecombe County boys shown at left will leave Sunday for Chicago, Illinois to attend the International Livestock Show and compete in the National 4-H Livestock Judging Contest. The boys are receiving a $400 check from Colonial Stores in recognition of the team's state championship. Left to right are Jerry Bullock of Route 1 Battleboro. I knew Jerry Bullock, passed away sadly a few years ago. Chester Stewart, Route 1 Whitakers, Ray Williams, Route 1 Pine Tops, and here's a name some of you recognize, Hugh Shelton from Speed. Hugh Shelton was, of course, a general in the Army, had a very illustrious career in the military, in fact, and he was indeed from Speed. And then, of course, the last person in the picture is manager of the Tarboro Colonial Store, Charlie Lockhart. I'm sorry, D.L. Spain was the manager of Tarboro Colonial Store, and Charlie Lockhart was assistant Edgecombe County farm agent. You know, I don't know if the 4-H is still active in this area or not. When I was a young kid, and certainly even in my teenage years, the 4-H was very popular with the county schools. Not so much with the city schools, but I know Northern Nash, for example, and Southwest Edgecombe and North Edgecombe, all the more rural schools had really active 4-H clubs, and a lot of young people got their start into agribusiness, farming, and taking care of livestock and so forth by participating in 4-H clubs. So, you know, it's one of those things you don't hear much about anymore. So if anyone knows anything about the 4-H, whether it's still active in the area, let me know. And by the way, if you see a picture tonight, you recognize somebody in it, feel free to give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Item number 3 there, if we could, Lee. This picture appeared in the Telegram in March of 1964, and it's kind of hard to see there, a little bit grainy, I do apologize, but it says, the caption reads, "For the dogs," and it says, "Every dog has its day. Now comfort stations, including a bright red fire plug, are being provided. This one is located at the Howard Johnson restaurant on US 301 near Rocky Mount. It has been a big hit with tourists and their pets." So what you're looking at here is a little fenced-in area, and it's got a fire hydrant for the little dogs that might need one, as well as a food dish and a water bowl there. You know, the last one of these I saw has been some years ago. I was traveling up 95 and I stopped off in Roanoke Rapids, and there was an area up there, it was referred to as a pet rest station. And it was a little fenced-in area, and it had a very similar layout like this. Fire hydrant was there, just like in this picture, and water bowl, and of course a little sign saying please clean up after your pet. But anyway, I hadn't seen one in a long time, and I don't know, it does not say when this picture was taken originally. It appeared in the paper, as I said, in March of 1964, but it was obviously a reprint, and it was a photo taken by Bugs Behringer. Okay. This next item, item number 4, this is the one that really kind of struck a nerve with me. Lee, if you would, item number 4, there was a segment that ran for a couple of years in the 1970s called Remember When, and it was featuring Bugs Behringer's pictures and pictures from his collection. And this is one that appeared, I'm not sure when it appeared originally. I would say this is a reprint, but this print here appeared July of 1977. And it says, the caption reads, "Angel Visits Market." One of the visitors to the famous Rocky Mount Tobacco Market was a professional wrestler called the Angel at left. He is being shown fine quality leaf by Bill Lewis, Rocky Mount native who promoted sports in the Richmond and Norfolk areas. The picture was made in late 40s or early 50s. Again, a Bugs Behringer photograph. So when I saw this picture, I immediately had 2 thoughts. Number one, my grandfather, Adcox, on my father's side, was a tenant farmer. You've heard me say that many times on this show. He farmed a little small farm out in Brattleboro most of his adult life. Raised 10 kids on that little small farm. And but in addition to being a farmer, and he loved farming, he loved what he did. But in addition to that, he was also what's the word I'm looking for? An ecstatic wrestling fan, or as he used to say, wrestling. He loved wrestling. And if you went to their house on Saturday evening, you were going to watch wrestling on TV, or you were going to go outside, because that was the only thing there was to watch as far as he was concerned, was wrestling. So I saw this picture, and it was obviously a tobacco market, and this gentleman here was a professional wrestler, and I said there's better than a good chance not only was my grandfather there selling tobacco, if he knew there was a professional wrestler in Rocky Mount, he probably made a special trip just to this market just to meet this gentleman here. So I got to looking, to see what I could find about this, the French Angel here, or the Angels that refers to him here, and lo and behold, it wasn't too hard to find out who he was and find a little bit about him. Technically, he's referred to as the French Angel, and he was actually born in Russia in 1903. It says he was born in 1903 in the Ural Mountains in Russia to French parents. His mother was a teacher. His father was a railroad engineer. His father died when he was young. As a child, he had a completely normal appearance and was even given the nickname the Angel by his mother due to his innocent face. In 1917, Tillett and his mother left Russia due to the revolution and moved to France, where they settled in a town called Reims. When Tillett was 20 years old, he noticed swelling in his feet, hands, and head, and after visiting a doctor was diagnosed with acromegaly, a condition usually caused by a benign tumor on the pituitary gland, resulting in bone overgrowth and thickening. Tillett completed a law degree at the University of Toulouse, but he felt he would never be successful due to his deep voice and physical appearance. He served in the submarine service of the French Navy for 5 years. In 1937, he met a man named Carl Pagello in Singapore, who was also a professional wrestler and persuaded Tillett to enter the business. Tillett and Pagello moved to Paris for training, and Tillett wrestled for 2 years in France and England until World War II forced him to leave for the United States in 1939. In Boston, Massachusetts in 1940, promoter Paul Bowser pushed Tillett, who was wrestling as the French Angel as a main eventer, and he became a large draw in the area. As a result of his popularity, Tillett was booked as unstoppable and was unbeaten for a span of 19 consecutive months. The article goes on and tells about other people he was associated with and so forth. Sadly, he passed away in 1954. The condition that was detected in his 20s that what did I call it earlier? Acromegaly or something like that. Anyway, that ended up taking his life. Another interesting thing about Mr. Tillett was that many years later, a cartoon character came into existence and was actually called Shrek. Many of you remember the cartoon character Shrek. The next picture, Lee, I think it's identified as 4A. There you go. The picture on the left, of course, is Mr. Maurice Tillett, also known as the French Angel. And on the right there is Shrek. And rumor has it that Maurice Tillett was the model character that was used to create Shrek. How about that? Anyway, a little neat piece of picture there about this gentleman come to Rocky Mount. And as I said, I about bet money my grandfather. By the way, this little fella, I say little, he was a huge man. He was only 5'9", but he weighed 370 pounds. And so a couple of words come to mind. Certainly imposing comes to mind. Intimidating comes to mind. I would imagine he probably gave quite a few other wrestlers a scare of their life when they first saw him. He looked to be a fairly scary character. Okay, Lee, I'll tell you what, let's go on then to item number 5, if you would. This picture appeared in the Telegram in August of 1977, and I think I have seen this picture before, or at least I've seen one very similar to it. And obviously they're looping tobacco there. Some of you who grew up working in tobacco fields and working in tobacco there in the summertime as teenagers know all about this. But it says the old way. At one time, all tobacco had to be looped and hand-tied before going into the barn for curing. Now, a great deal of tobacco is cured in bulk barns, and this eliminates looping, thus saving labor. This once familiar scene was made in Nash County more than 20 years ago. The names of the workers are unknown. This appeared August, as I said, 1977. So sometime in the 1950s, this picture was taken on a tobacco farm somewhere here in Nash, Edgecombe County area. Well, it says here in Nash County. But in any case, again, it's kind of a lost art, if you will. You don't see anybody doing any looping of tobacco anymore. The bulk barns took away the need to do any looping. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 6, if we could. This picture appeared September 1977. And of course, it was another one of these Remember When sessions. And the caption reads, "First prize winner. It is always nice to win first prize in a parade, and this is the car that took first prize in the war bond drive in World War I. This is one of the pictures featured in Rocky Mount, a pictorial history that will soon be released and sold through the Junior Guild. Mary B. Trueblood is the driver, and standing are Ruth W. Coley, Edna Arrington Scruggs, May Burnett Matthews, and Catherine Burnett Toller Gardner. So a World War II picture was at 1917, 1918, and this parade was part of a war bond drive parade to raise money to get people to buy war bonds and so forth. Neat old picture there. I think I've seen this one before too. I've got a growing collection of photographs of both Bugs Behringer and Charlie Killebrew, of course, as well as a few other photographers that we've talked about over the years, last couple of years anyway. But I'm always interesting to me, it's interesting to find these old pictures that have been reprinted in paper and have this little tidbit of information at the bottom that tells a little historical history about the area and indeed the picture. Okay, let's go into item number 7, if you would. This picture appeared in November 1977 in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and it says, "Gas saver. Ms. Graham McLeod poses in front of her West Haven home in 1947 with her new Studebaker. The car featured overdrive and was advertised as a gas saver. The Studebaker has since become extinct." You know, Studebaker, of course, a lot of folks say was ahead of its time. Had a lot of features that a lot of other car manufacturers had not even begun putting on vehicles by the time the Studebaker came out and was mass produced. But sadly, for whatever reason, it just didn't get enough public appeal to stand the test of time, I guess you'd say. But they were some of the Studebaker models were really nice cars, really elegant. I've seen quite a few that were really spectacular over the years, especially those that have been restored. So anyway, another neat point here. Notice this was taken, this picture was taken in West Haven. You know, West Haven was developed back in the early 1900s, but before it was a subdivision, it was a kind of a swampy area back up in there. We'll get to more about that in a minute. It was actually a spring back there. There used to be a lake back there. But it was a popular area for camping, believe it or not. People used to go camping in what is now West Haven. We'll get to that a little bit later, but Lee, I'll tell you what, bring it back to me. It's time for our first commercial break. When we come back, we've got some more pictures to show you from this Bugs Behringer Remember When collection. As I said, there's about 34 pictures all in all. We won't probably get to all of them tonight. We'll do as many as we can tonight and take a look at the rest of them next week. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
On a Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
And we're back. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about some pictures by Bugs Behringer. You know, we've talked many times on this show about Charlie Killebrew and Bugs Behringer and some of the other photographers around the area, but certainly Bugs Behringer and Charlie Killebrew are two of the more well-known photographers, and with good reason. I mean, they both took excellent photographs, and I wish I had the originals of these photographs. I don't, sadly, but these I found online in a collection called Remember When from the Bugs Behringer Files. And so, as I said, most of these pictures were taken by Bugs Behringer, though one or two I realized when looking back over them today were from his collection that implies that he did not take them. He did somehow just got them. I think the vast majority of his photographs are now in possession of Kip Meadows here locally, and so I'm always glad to run across some of these that are out here in the public domain that we can share with you. Okay, let's jump back into them. Let's go to item number 8 if we could. And again, folks, I apologize. Some of these are not very clear. They're, like I said, they've been reproduced. But you may recognize this picture already for those 4 massive columns in the front. This is, of course, the First Baptist Church. And it says, "Remember this Vacation Bible School in the First Baptist Church in June 1948. Dr. J.W. Kinchelow, beloved pastor at the church, is shown at extreme right." I tried to lighten this up, and when I did, it just got almost unreadable anyway, so I didn't do anything up to it. But you know, over the years that church was there, and those steps and those columns, there's no telling how many family photographs and vacation Bible school photographs, high school graduation photographs, marriage photographs, weddings, and so forth. It was just a natural, beautiful place to take pictures. And again, there's no telling how many pictures were taken on the steps of the First Baptist Church here in Rocky Mount over the years when it was available to do that. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 9 if we could. In January of 1978, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. Again, it's from this Bugs Behringer Remember When collection. And it says on the, you know, when I first saw this, I thought it was a political campaign, and I thought, well, it must be when LBJ came to visit Rocky Mount, but actually it wasn't. It says there was tremendous interest in the campaign of Frank Graham, UNC president, and Willis Smith of Raleigh for the U.S. Senate seat in 1950. Shown above is just part of the crowd that turned out to hear Graham make a short speech at the Rick's Hotel here. Smith won the election in one of the bitterest fights in the state's political history. So this was before my time, obviously, 1950. I was not even thought about by then. But you know, it's interesting that there were so many people come out to hear these two gentlemen speak. It probably would be an interesting a bit of history to research just how bitter this election was. This author, whoever wrote this caption anyway, refers to it as one of the bitterest fights in the state's political history. So apparently it must have gotten pretty gnarly toward the end there. But in any case, this was, what did I say, 1950, there you go. But it appeared in the paper for the second time, January 1978. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead into item number 10. This picture is one that we have shown fairly recently. In fact, you may recognize that's May Woods Bell, of course, there in the center, holding a barn owl. And this picture, I'm guessing, was probably originally shown in the late 50s or perhaps even early 60s. But it was reprinted again in February of 1978 in the Rocky Mount Telegram in this same Remember When series of photographs from the Bugs Behringer collection. And it says, the caption reads, "At the museum, then as now, there was an owl at the Children's Museum in Rocky Mount, and May Woods Bell, director, was showing it to visiting children. And then as now, the children displayed just as much interest in the nocturnal bird. The year was 1954. If you remember here back in October, we did a short little segment, a couple weeks in fact, spread over 2 weeks, on May Woods Bell and the Rocky Mount Children's Museum and so forth, and how all that came to be. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we had this very picture right here as one that we showed during that little segment we were featuring May Woods Bell. But I ran across it again, and you know, I said, well, we'll share it again because it's a neat picture of May, and always with kids and smiling kids most time at that. Okay, let's go to item number 11 if we could. And this picture appeared also in 1978, March of 1978. And it says, Dream House. In 1948, the Rocky Mount Pilot Club took on the project of building a Blanton's Dream House in West Haven with Albert Rabel as the builder. It was on display and then purchased by Mr. S.L. Arrington. Profits from the sale of the house went to help establish a heart center at Chapel Hill. How would you like to have the 1948 Mercury sitting in the driveway? You know, West Haven, from its very inception, has always been a showplace in Rocky Mount. Some of the most elegant homes and some of the most stately manners. have, you know, been in West Haven for, oh golly, close to 100 years now. And, you know, it's obviously not the only place in Rocky Mount where affluent people have lived, but it is kind of its own community in many ways. And West Haven has always, I think, been considered an upper echelon community. And, you know, some of Rocky Mount's most prominent citizens live there and raise their families in West Haven, and still do, I might add, to this day. So anyway, this appeared March 1978. Okay, Lee, let's move on to item number 12 then. In April of 1978, this picture appeared as one of the entries for the Remember When series of photographs, and the caption reads, "Pet Plant." And it says, during the 40s, Robert A., and in parentheses, I guess his nickname was Squinch Lindsay, planted and nurtured this tobacco plant outside his office on St. James Street in Tarboro. Note, gentle use of feather duster on the leaves. Lindsay had a brother, E.A. Lindsay, who lived in Rocky Mount. This is the first I've ever seen of anyone who grew a tobacco plant as basically a decoration. But you know, if you remember what a tobacco plant looks like, particularly when it blooms, the little tubular shaped flowers on top are really pretty, purple and blue and pink and so forth. And so I can see this being a really nice decoration, as long as you don't reach in and grab the top of it where it's all sticky and gooey. All right, Lee, let's go item number 13 if we could. This was in June of 1978, and the caption here reads, "Organizer of Camping Trips." I mentioned earlier that there was, before West Haven became developed as a, a subdivision, it was a popular place for people to go camping. And this gentleman right here, Mr. Uncle Bud Harris, as he was referred to, was a clerk of court for a number of years and one of the most respected men in the community. During the early part of this century, this would have been the early 1900s, not the 2000, but 1900s, he was the main organizer of camping trips for leading citizens. One of the favorite spots was Harris Springs, which is located in West Haven. Photo was made at his home on Sunset Avenue in 1940 by Bugs Behringer. So who knew? You know, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about Mr. J.R. Sorsby, who was an outdoorsman, an avid camper and hunter and fisherman and so forth. He was one of the ones that were involved in these camping trips, of course. And so to think that at one time, what we know of today as West Haven was a very remote, very, you know, desolate, isolated area that was a popular place for people to go camping. It seems hard to believe now, but indeed it was. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 14. Anytime I run across a picture of a bunch of pretty girls, I can't help myself. I got to share that too. This is captioned "Members of the Athletic Group." It says these pretty girls were members of the Girls Athletic Association, at the Rocky Mount Senior High School in 1947. The high school was located on Marigold Street at that time in the building which later became known as the R.M. Wilson Junior High School. None of these ladies are identified here, but they are an attractive bunch for sure. It does not say what age group they are. I'm guessing they were probably mostly seniors. They all look to be of that age. But anyway, they were members of the Girls Athletic Association in Rocky Mount High School in 1947. Okay, Lee, item number 15 if we could. Speaking of the Rocky Mount Senior High School, this picture, by the way, appeared in July of 1978 for the second time. But it says, the caption reads, in 1948, the senior high school was located on the eastern side of town in a building which was later to be called R.M. Wilson Junior High School. The band, pictured by James Reed, was made in the courtyard between the auditorium and classrooms. James Reed, of course, worked for a while with Bugs Behringer, was one of his staff photographers. And so, you know, when I see this picture, I think about the days of the Rocky Mount Christmas Parade and the marching bands. You know, Rocky Mount High School bands, both the Rocky Mount Senior High School Band and the Booker T. Washington High School Band, both won state and national honors, in fact, for many years, and were known as two of the best bands in the state. And so we've got a lot to be proud of our marching bands here locally, a tradition that goes back several decades, in fact. Okay, Lee, let's go on then. Item number 16. Speaking of pretty ladies, this one here caught my eye, of course. And this caption reads, by the way, this appeared in the Telegram for the second time, August 1978. And again, it was one of these Remember When segment. Scenic beauty. One of the loveliest models ever to grace the local scene was Miss Dot Arrington, shown above at the local swimming pool. Her pictures appeared in magazines and newspapers along the East Coast. She now lives in South Carolina. Bugs Barringer, the photographer, refused to give the year he made the photograph as he didn't want the readers to know his age. All he would say is that he started taking pictures, especially at girls, at an early age. I can't say I ever knew Miss Dot Arrington, but she was certainly a lovely lady in the 1940s. I think it said 1948. Is that what I read earlier? But in any case, and I think, I'm not certain about this. I'm reading again now. I don't see a year date in here, actually. So I'm not sure when this picture was taken. And I'm wondering now if this was at the pool at Sunset Park or if it was at the pool that used to be behind the old public library. For those that remember, we've talked about that pool before too. Before they built the pool at Sunset Park, there was a municipal pool there behind the old Thomas Hackney Brazel Memorial Library. But anyway, I can't tell from this picture whether she was at that pool or the senior high, at the newer pool at Sunset Park. Pretty lady nonetheless. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 17. When I first saw this picture, I immediately thought about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Obviously, it's not those two people. But it's a neat story here. This picture appeared for the second time in September of 1978. And it says Dance Act is the caption. It reads, Miss Chi Davis, it's C-H-E-E, Miss Chi Davis and her brother Tommy of Nashville had the best dance act for miles around in the early 50s. Both had performed professionally since an early age. I never knew anything about these folks. This was news to me to find this photograph here of this brother and sister dance team. But I can just imagine that they lit up the floor when they took the stage and went to dancing. She's a very attractive lady. He's a sharp-looking young man. And I'm sure that they impressed a lot of people with their dance moves back in the 1950s. Okay, Lee, I'll tell you what, let's move on then. Item number 18. This picture appeared in the paper in September 1978. It does not have a date for its original debut, though it does say it was made about 1950. And the caption reads, Mystery Event. What was the occasion of Mayor Dick Duke donning this outfit? None of his friends seem to know the answer, but maybe one of the readers can come up with the right answer. The picture was made about 1950, but the reason why is still a mystery. I've looked at this picture several times since I ran across it a couple days ago, and for the life of me, I can't imagine what kind of event, or unless he was in some kind of play, maybe. I don't know if it was Rocky Mountain's had a playhouse, so to speak, and numerous times over the years there have been local productions of plays and so forth. I don't remember Mayor Duke. I've heard the name before, but after looking at this and just scratching my head, I had to consider the possibility that we may never know why he was wearing this particular outfit. Apparently, no one else knew either, even his friends, when this picture appeared. So, anyway, it's a neat old photograph from the Bugs Barringer collection. All right, Lee, I'll tell you what, let's go on to item number 19 if we could. We talked about pretty girls earlier, and here's three beauties for sure. When the 1949 Whitaker's basketball teams took the court, these young ladies led the cheers from their loyal supporters. They are left to right: Helen Price, Mary Bryan Reed, and Ethel Hardy. Ethel Hardy I consider to be a dear friend of mine. I went to school with her sons, Billy and Bobby. And if you remember, several months ago, we did a layout of some Belt Tyler's ads, and they did a model feature exhibit, if you will, at Belt Tyler's here in Rocky Mount back in the 50s. And Ethel Hardy, who later married Mr. Bobby Landis, and Bill Landis, excuse me, and then in later years she was married to J.D. Hines of Hines Equipment Company. But anyway, in the 1950s, Miss Hardy then, Ethel Hardy then, appeared in a Belt Tyler advertising spread, modeling some dresses for Belt Tyler's. This is the first time I'd seen this particular photograph here, And I'm gonna have to save this and see if I can clean it up a little bit, make it a little bit clearer, and get her a copy of this. She's in her, well, I won't tell you how old. She's obviously a senior citizen now. This picture would have been 1949. My father knew her. They went to school together, in fact, at Whitaker's High School. But still a beautiful lady today, and I'm glad I came across this picture to share with you tonight. Okay, so Lee, let's tell you what, let's move on to item number 20. We showed some other cheerleaders a minute ago, and this group here, it says, the caption reads, Nash High Cheerleaders. Things were a little different back when this picture was taken in 1951. Hairstyles, clothing, and shoes have all changed since the cheerleaders at the old Nashville High School posed for this photo by James Reed of Behringer Studio. I'm not sure where the old, as it refers to your old Nashville High School was. I think, and somebody will probably know and maybe can call in and give me a more detailed explanation. I seem to recall being told years ago that if you turn left there, right there at the old Cooley Manor and head like you're going out 58, there's an old school down there. I'm wondering if that was the old high school. I'm not sure about that, honestly. 407-1111, if anybody knows where the old Nashville High School was. I know there's an old school down there. I think it was, I want to say W.L. Green maybe in recent years, but I know it's an older school, so maybe that was it, but if not, maybe someone knows. Okay, I'll tell you what, Lee, bring it back to me. It's about time for our next commercial break. Got a few more of these to share with you tonight, so when we come back from the break, we'll go back into these old Bugs Behringer photographs. As I said at the top of the show, the photographs themselves are not great. I apologize for the quality, a little grainy, a little blurry at times, not real clear. But the captions, to me, are almost as good as the picture itself because it's a snapshot in time. It tells a little bit about the history of the area, and it's always interesting to me to read these captions and kind of reflect on what was going on in the photograph when it was made. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Way Back Wednesday.
Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't arise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
And we're back. During the break, I got a phone call from Bobby Landis. As I said before, Bobby and I went to school together, used to work together, in fact. And he had called his mom and told her that we were showing these old pictures and that she was in one of them. And so I think she's tuned in now. So welcome to the show. Lee, if you would, let's go back. Pull item number 19. That's the picture of the three cheerleaders from from Whitaker's High School. And we'll go back over this one more time. It says, when the 1949 Whitaker's basketball teams hit the court, these young ladies led the cheers from their local supporters. They are left to right: Helen Price, Mary Bryan Freed, Reed and, of course, Ethel Hardy at that time. And as I said before, Miss Hines, we missed you missed that part of it, but I just want to say again, I consider you to be a dear friend, and you're just as elegant and just as lovely today as you were in 1949 when this picture was taken. So congratulations on aging gracefully and still beautiful. Okay, I understand. Bobby said, by the way, you still got this picture somewhere, so if you happen to dig it up, I'd love to see the original. All right, Lee, let's move on if we could then. Let's go to item number, where we stop at, Lee? 21 or 20? 20, okay. Item number 21 appeared in the Telegram for the second time, and I'm going to say that repeatedly because, as I said, these are all reprints. They originally appeared many years earlier, in some cases, the 40s and 50s, and then someone resurrected these pictures in this series of photographs, and they titled it "Remember When" from Behringer's Files. And so all the photos we're looking at tonight were some that had originally appeared in the paper many years earlier, and then were resurrected, if you will, and reprinted in the 1970s. We're up now. It started out in the 1950s. We're now at December 1978. This picture appeared for the second time in the Telegram, and it says, "Post-war car is welcome. Remember when the new Studebakers came out in 1947? World War II was over, and the American public welcomed the new automobiles. Mr. and Ms. Don Carter and their daughter Blake and Miss Peggy McIntyre of Red Oak look at the new car at Cadell Motor Company. Blake married Grady Elmore and lives in Madison, while Peggy married John Reed, and they live in Virginia Beach." So, we just talked about Dick Cadell, Cadell Motors last week, I think it was, a week before last. I did not know him, of course, back during the time this picture was made originally. I wasn't born then, for one thing, but I did have the pleasure of meeting Dick Cadell many years later. When I was in high school, I was in, at that time, what was called ICT. Many of you are familiar with the DE program, Distributive Education. ICT, I think, was Industrial Cooperative Training, and it was a similar program where you got out of school and went to work. So my junior and senior year in high school, I got out of school at 1 o'clock and I went to work. And I worked at Chipley Lincoln Mercury. And ironically, Mr. Chipley, or his father perhaps, at one time had been a Studebaker dealer. So we had old Studebaker parts in the parts room that I remember seeing. And every now and again, someone would come in with an old Studebaker that they wanted to get it serviced. So we'd change the oil or whatever needed to be done to it. But I've always thought the old Studebakers were neat cars. And so anyway, this appeared in 1978 as a reprint, I should say. Okay. All right, Lee, let's go ahead then. Item number 22. This appeared also in 1978, also in December. And I think we have shown this picture before. It's a grade level picture of downtown Rocky Mount, looking more or less southwest. And it says the picture gives a nostalgic view of how southwest Main Street of Rocky Mount looked back in 1955. Most of those big signs that hung over the sidewalk have since been removed. Can you tell what business establishments have disappeared, either closed out or moved to a new location? And I didn't think about that until I read this caption. And then I look at these photographs and these buildings here, and there's several of them that have these great big signs that are literally hanging off the front of the building. And that's something, there's one there at Effords. You can read Effords above there. I'm not exactly sure what the other stores are. It looks like Roscoe Griffin's shoe store maybe there's got one. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 of these huge signs hanging out the front of these businesses, in the front of business. Something you don't see anymore, and I'm not sure why that is, unless it be considered a public safety hazard now. Everything has become so safety conscious. But anyway, it's a neat old picture from the 1950s, 1955, I think was when it said this picture was taken originally. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 23. This picture appeared in January of 1979 for the second time. And when I looked at this picture, I immediately, my mind flashed to an old Coca-Cola advertisement I had seen some years ago. I don't think this lady ever appeared in a Coke ad, but it just reminded me of a turn of the century Coke ad. And this lady was here, right here in Rocky Mount. Her name was Margaret Taylor. She was very proud of her hat, it says here, as she is shown here posing for her picture in 1920. The photo shows how styles have changed over the years, but then most people discover that sooner or later, old fashions come back in style after being relegated to the closet for years. So, this says 1920 she was posing with this picture. So, I never knew this lady. I don't know anything about her. Obviously a very attractive lady. But this picture, that's a pretty good span. You think 50-some years, almost 60 years from the time this picture originally appeared in the paper in 1920, and then when it appeared the second time in 1979. And this is one of the better ones, I have to say, as far as quality and clarity in the photograph. I've seen some of Bugs Barron's original prints and images, and just like Charlie Killebrews, I've said this before, they were both, phenomenal photographers, done exceptional photography work, and their original photographs would stand the test of time, and you put them up against anybody in the photography world. They were that good. But being reproduced a couple times, and certainly in a newspaper, and then being printed off again, you're probably looking at a third or fourth generation image here. But I can only imagine what this picture looked like from the original, and I'd love to find it. It's just a neat old picture, and like I said, I never knew this lady, never knew anything about her, but I loved her outfit there. It's just real neat. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 24. This picture appeared in the Telegram in 1979, February 1979. There's another picture from Nashville. This says the top Nashville girls team. 1949 Nashville High School girls team was one of the best in that era. Front row, Phoebe Womble, Sadie Deans, Erilyn Jenkins, Mary Catherine Stanfield, Myrna Cooper, and Dorothy Mae Barnes. Second row, Mary C. Dickens, Violet Joyner, Janet Taylor, Lois Collins, Frances Gardner, and Dorothy Whitley. Third row, Coach C.H. Fries, Madeline Cooper, Barbara LaCroix, May Etta Snipes, Mabel Gray King, and June Bunn. Good looking bunch of ladies there. Girls basketball team to have 3 squads, that's pretty good. I mean, they go pretty deep, I guess, in a game. And they must have been pretty good too. They're one of the best in the area, it says here. And this was from 1949. Anyway, it appeared in the Telegram for the second time in February of 1979. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 25. Some of you may remember this gentleman here. I certainly remember the name, Mr. Theo Pitt. In January of 1980, this picture appeared for the second time again as part of this Remember When in the Bugs Barron's collection. And it says Theo Pitt Jr. is shown in this 1953 photo at Rocky Mount Senior High School, where he was connected with the school yearbook. Now he is president of Home Savings and Loan Company. And of course, this is in 1980. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe 1953 was the first year of the new Rocky Mount Senior High School. I think they opened up for classes the first year in 1953 over there, if memory serves me. But anyway, many of you may remember Mr. Pitt there. Looking back, long way there. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. This next picture kind of stumped me. It stumped a lot of people, in fact, and so maybe someone will recognize this picture. If you do, give us a call. 407-1111 is a number. Item number 26 appeared in the Telegram in March of 1980, and the caption read, "Who was the cowboy with the tall hat? He appeared here in the 40s to promote the sale of war bonds and stamps. The youngster at right had just purchased a bond and received an autograph from the cowboy." So, a couple names came to mind, but the time slots didn't fit, and it's not a great photograph again. I apologize. These are just not real good quality. Even the one that appeared on the website when I went to, and of course, I should also say, as I do each week, I spend hours rumbling through the newspapers.com website. It's really a treasure trove of old pictures and old articles. And I love browsing through and just looking at what's there. But unfortunately, what's there quite often is pretty much the quality you're seeing right here. You can lighten them up a little bit, darken them sometimes if they're too light, but the graininess and the blurriness is pretty much already there when I pull these pictures up on the screen. And so when I print them off, that's just another reprint, if you will. So you're looking at another generation of a photograph that's already been digitized and copied a couple times, most likely. And so, but like I said, I did do a little bit of digging trying to find out who this gentleman was, and just come up empty. I don't know who he was or what the occasion was. It does say he was here to promote the sale of war bonds, but beyond that, I don't know. It doesn't say he was a movie star, so I don't know. We'll have to leave it at that, I guess. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 27. This picture appeared in March of 1980 for the second time, and the caption reads, "Frog Drowner." And it says, "Remember this frog drowning rain?" Who ever heard of a frog drowning rain? That's a new one on me. But anyway, it says, "Remember this frog drowning rain? Photographer James Reed stood in the doorway of Behringer's studio on Western Avenue and pointed his camera toward Cress's store. At left is part of Arthur Cockrell's garage. The year was 1953. It's hard to see there, but directly in front of you, of course, is the Cress's store on the corner of Main Street and Western Avenue. And on the left-hand side, it's dark and it's hard to make out, but that is the corner, if you face it, it'd be the right-hand corner of Mr. Arthur Cockrell's garage. And that's long gone, of course. Many years ago, that was taken down, and I think the telegram office was there. But in any case, you can see there in the water in the street. I don't know how deep it got there, but it obviously flooded the street, and my guess is it probably got in Mr. Cockrell's garage there too. But this took place, 1953 was the actual flood itself. The picture was reprinted March of 1980 in the Rocky Mountain Telegram. Okay, Lee, let's move on. Item number 28. Who remembers the fire at Parkview Hospital? I can't say I do. It was 1948. It was way before my time. But in 1948, Parkview Hospital, which was located on Falls Road, of course, was the scene of fire, which attracted a lot of attention at the time. No patients were injured, but there was a lot of smoke damage. Like I said, this was way before my time. I didn't know anything about this fire. Had the occasion a couple of times to go in and out of Parkview Hospital. I had my grandmother was in there on a couple of occasions. I went to visit her there. A couple other family members spent time in there. Luckily for me, I was never hospitalized there, but I have had the occasion to go in and out there a few times. But I never knew it had caught on fire at some point in the past. So 1948, there was indeed a fire at Parkview Hospital. I don't think it did a lot of extensive damage according to the caption here. It seems mostly smoke damage, but I'm sure that was unpleasant for the folks who happened to be hospitalized at the time. Okay, Lee, moving right along. Item number 29. This item appeared in the Telegram for the second time in March of 1982. And this caption reads, 50s fashion. It was in the 50s, as you can see by the length of the skirts and the shoes. Each year, the student body and local citizens would take a train trip either to Wilmington or Fayetteville. This photo was taken just before the special ACL train pulled out. From left are Nancy Newbold and Georgia Davis. You know, I have a very faint memory of taking a train ride. I think I was in the first or second ride, and we went to Enfield. I don't recall the occasion. It was just a train ride. We had to get permission slips signed from our parents. I think we had to carry a bag lunch, if I recall correctly. But we rode the train to Enfield, and I don't remember riding it back, honestly. I don't know if we rode a school bus back from the Enfield train station or how we got back to school. And of course, that was elementary school too, so these were obviously high school students here. But to take a trip on a train to Wilmington or Fayetteville must have been an exciting trip back in the 1950s. Okay, Lee, moving right along. We're almost out of time here. May of 1982, these pretty ladies adorned the Rocky Mountain Telegram pages. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, call. You on the air?
All right. That picture that showed Georgia Davis.
Yeah.
She was in my class in high school, 1962.
Okay.
In those years, the Blackbird Special went 1 year to Wilmington, and the next year it went to Fayetteville. Georgia Davis is a person that went to Rocky Mountain High School. She was George Davis's daughter. She married Danny Mills, who was also in my class. And Danny Mills' daddy was the person who had the L-shaped strip mall out there in Englewood at Forest Hill and Sunset Avenue.
It's about Bobby Mears.
Bobby Mills was the brother to Danny Mills.
Right. Okay.
Goodbye.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Good night. Okay. All right, Lee. Item number 30, real quickly, we'll bust through these last couple real quick here. May of 1982, this picture appeared. It says the year was 1953, and the pretty majorettes for the Rocky Mount Senior High School band are shown lined up on the steps of the school auditorium for the yearbook picture. They're not identified, but they are indeed pretty ladies. So, congrats there, ladies. 1953 majorettes for the Rocky Mount Senior High School marching band. Item number 31, Lee, we'll make this the last one tonight. This is also from Rocky Mount Senior High. It appeared in 1982 for the second time. It says Rocky Mount's Blackbirds, as the team was called then, had just whipped Fayetteville into Eastern 4A Conference in 1954, and the cheerleaders were celebrating from left to right: Peggy Daniel, Bill Nelms, and Sue Yelverton. May of 1982 is when this appeared. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We ran slam out of time. I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank those who called in and shared your memories. Always good to hear from you. There was 3 or 4 more in the group. We'll try to get to those next week. We got further than I thought we'd get, frankly. But anyway, it's been my pleasure to be with you tonight. Hope you're enjoying this nice, warm spring weather. I certainly am. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care of yourselves, folks. Have a great week and be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Way Back Wednesday. Good night.